right. Well, welcome to another episode of the S3 Magazine podcast. Again, we have Battles, aka at battles.digital on all the social media channels with his fancy new phone. And then Mike Sanders, the straight-laced dude over there. I'm Jonathan Woolley. And before we start, I want to give a shout out to Kicker Audio. They're not an official sponsor of the podcast, but they do support S3 Magazine, and we do appreciate them. You'll see them on the website, so we figured we'd just, send them a shout out. We love you. Anyway, what are we really talking about? Yesterday, not on a podcast, just on a phone conversation, me and Ben Battles were talking about Scout, which is Volkswagen's. Volkswagen has resurrected Scout. You guys know Scout, the old school rugged 4x4s and stuff like that. Well, Volkswagen has brought them back from the dead as EVs only, but they're kind of like polarizing. I mean, I'm kind of an EV hater. Like I said in the article, like it's not, I don't like being lied to. You know what I mean? I don't like the government telling me what I'm going to drive. It's not necessarily EVs that I hate. However, EVs are a victim of the lies that they told us to try and push the EV agenda. So even though I don't like EVs, there's a lot to like about the Scout. So I'm kind of stuck on both sides of the fence with this thing. And then Ben Battles he was like, "Oh, I got some stuff to say." So I figured, take it away, Ben. What you got to say about this?
Well, man, first off, just the Scout brand, of course, not being an international Scout anymore, Scout being owned by the Volkswagen Group, Volkswagen seeming to double down on their whole EV strategy, although all of the headlines would make you think otherwise. Like Volkswagen said that they would be building a battery plant to make their EVs and kind of have everything in-house, like how Tesla does a lot of stuff. But then kind of backtracking on that and saying, well, only if there's a demand for it, and the demand's not looking so hot. So now what are they doing? Well, you put in that article that they have something like a range extender, which is like, okay, what's that? It's a gas motor. It's a generator that goes in it, and that eliminates the range anxiety. Like, bro, if you're going to do that, just make it a hybrid to begin with, because I can tell you right now that option is going to be something that more people are going to hop into. And, kudos to Volkswagen for thinking about it. What you got, Mike?
Well, time out. I want to talk about that just really, really fast because I read that, and in my opinion, that is a hybrid. That's just them calling
Mm-hmm.
it EV, which is false because the whole idea of a hybrid is that you're using gas powered and battery technology and molding the two together. Now, I know
Yes.
a traditional way to use a hybrid that we know it, but can we call a spade a spade? That's a hybrid, right?
Yeah, by definition, that's a hybrid. And in my article, I said it is metaphorically like when that band was wearing their mask during COVID with a slit in it to play their instruments. Because I think I said in the
Yeah.
article, we've come like full circle jerk at this point.
Yes.
We are making an EV and then putting a separate generator in it that we have to pour gas into. So when the EV runs out of range, we can make it. This is stupid. Like, how have we gotten this damn gullible just as a consumer base? Are we that unintelligent? Have we gotten that unintelligent to go, wait? Keep it simple, stupid. Simplicity is always best. Pick one. I mean, I know hybrids have gotten really popular while EVs have kind of like backtracked and failed. I don't personally even like a hybrid for the reason that you have to have a gas motor, an electric motor, a battery, and communication. That's fail points. And for somebody that drives a lot of old cars, I know a lot about fail points. You want to minimize the fail points. So what are you doing? Are you saving, I don't know, $70 a month on gas by running your hybrid? And that's being generous. To have to spend 7,000 in a few years, I'll take the small builds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, get rid of the complication, minimize my having to go back to the dealership, and give me a car that's going to be a reliable car for a long time. if I have to give up a little bit of MPGs, I'm fine with that. There's other ways to gain MPGs, but we don't talk about that. We are in an age where we are just, instead of simplifying to gain MPGs like they did in the early 90s with Civic hatchbacks and stuff, we are complicating the shit out of it to try and gain MPGs. And this whole range extender thing, I mean, they're not the first ones to do it. You know what I mean? I know the BMW i3 had that stuff, but it's just, what the hell? Are you lugging a generator around in your car all the time in the event that you need the extra?
Let's
An
not
EV's not for you.
Yeah, let's not forget about the fact that one of the most simple things that you can do to get better miles per gallon is less weight in the vehicle. That's the biggest problem right now is the cars that we drive are freaking 8,000-pound bricks with no aerodynamics. You know, they're just absolute trash. So now we're basically going to just put extra motors inside of them just so you don't have anxiety about range. This is the dumbest thing that we've talked about in a while, guys.
I mean, really, the tech industry needs to know when to bow out a little bit and let the professionals, the automotive enthusiasts, interject with a little bit of wisdom, because they're not listening. They're trying to push, they want cars to be, synced up with their iPhones so bad, and they want that, just that iPhone experience in every aspect of their life. I'm surprised they're not trying to have iPhone sex. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah, think about that.
No,
That reminds me of Demolition Man too. I don't know. You guys probably hadn't seen that movie. Mike, you probably have.
the other night.
Yeah, so you know the scene. But anyway, we're getting there fast. And I forgot what I was saying now. I got all off topic, but we just need to simplify this. We need to let the people that understand cars talk about cars. Yes, by all means, like, tech can be a part of it, but we've gone full stupid here.
No, absolutely. And, sometimes when it comes to cars, more simpler is more better. I was raised from a very young age by my father that sometimes you don't need all of the gadgets and gizmos. It just means there's less to go wrong at the end of the day. It's cheaper for the end consumer. Like, you have all of these positives. And Mike, like you were saying, whenever it comes to the overall car's design, think back to like the Honda Insight from the early 2000s. That car was simple. It weighed less than 2,000 pounds. It had an aerodynamic body. It's still like the top five most aerodynamic production cars ever made. That thing got over 60 miles per gallon. That is the right way to do a hybrid, to market a hybrid. We haven't really seen anything like that since, but I know if somebody came out today, an auto manufacturer, I don't care if it's Honda, Toyota, Ford, or whoever, came out today and said, we've got a hybrid that gets 60 to 70 miles per gallon, costs $25,000, and you don't have to rely solely on EV, and it can charge itself and, like, deal with everything on its own. Man, people would be lining up at whatever dealership to get a piece of that pie.
But
Because,
see,
I mean, nobody's doing that these days. Everybody's making big bricks. Look at Rivian, for example, going back to the Scout. These are huge, just bricks. They're not aerodynamic. They're not functionally like that. And, like, I'm interested to see how their hybrid system on the Scout's going to compare. But we have to wait until 2027 just to see what's going on. This was just a show of concept cars. It's kind of crazy, but it's
well,
like a wait and see game at this point.
and real quick, you mentioned the Insight, but think about it. Where are the Insights now? They're gone. I mean, the vast majority are no longer on the road, and I promise you, it's because it had a battery failure that made the car total, an otherwise good car. You take, EG Civics, EK Civics, that era. Those are older era cars. You still see more of them on the road. You still see more old Corollas and Lexuses and all of these internal combustion single engine cars from the 90s are still on the road because they were built smart. They were built to be durable. They were built to be serviceable when they did break. And Insight, they show me first, second, even first, second, third generation Priuses gone.
Yeah.
Like they don't stay on the road. They get great MPGs up until they break, and then they're done. They're disposable. And these young guys and girls that are pushing this hybrid and pushing the sustainability lie and pushing EVs and all this kind of stuff, they frankly, they don't have enough life under their belt to know where this leads. It takes a couple different seasons of life to go, yeah, been through that. You know what I mean? Like 10 years comes faster than you think. Although maybe it's me, because every time I buy a car, mentally, I'm like, I want this car to last. I want this to be a long-term purchase. And I think a lot of the younger people, they don't care about ownership like me and Mike does. You're somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
As far as your age, because, like Mike's almost 40 or whatever. I'm in my 40s and you're like, what, 30 or something
Yep.
like that? So it kind of breaks down the generations a little bit. But I've noticed that a lot of the younger guys, they don't take pride in the ownership of a vehicle. They'd rather use it, just like those damn stupid bird scooters. They would just rather use it and then not have to deal with it, probably because they don't know how to work on anything or keep anything.
Well, I think
Yeah.
for the first time in a really long time, maybe ever, more people look at cars as just a form of transportation than actually a reflection of self. You know?
Yeah, that an expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know my wife does.
What's that?
Yeah, yeah. My wife is not into cars like at all.
Yeah.
She views cars as a tool
Yeah.
from A to B, get there reliably, be safe. You know, we've got a kid on the way, and like a new car that offers all these safety features, like that is to her is like absolutely important. And it is also important to me. So, like you said, I'm kind of like in the middle of that where it's like I do value my safety, my family's safety, and stuff like that with a modern crash structure, but I also don't want it to be lifeless and soulless and want to have fun, so like where's the happy medium with that,
Well, yeah. At the end of the day, it is used for transportation, but it's also an instrument of fun. Manual transmissions, like once you kind of master it, or even when you're just learning it, it is really, really difficult to replicate something else that's that fun and that freeing. Also, think it's a massive purchase. It shouldn't just be some everyday off the shelf car. Like whenever you go buy a house, you don't want to be one of those people that just goes buy a cookie cutter house that looks exactly like every other house that's around you. You want it to be yours and built the way that you want it to. And I want to have this cool basement and the awesome back patio. I look at cars the same way. It's a massive investment. I'm going to be paying this off for a long time. Therefore, I want it to be freaking mine, not the same thing as Jim down the street. All right, this has got to be about
Mhm.
me, and that's people are just losing that. And I don't know if it's because of the ride share stuff, because like every Uber and Lyft vehicle out there, it's like the same 5 models over and over and over again that come pick you up, or just the fact that every car is white or gray or black nowadays, and like everything is so boring that's coming out, and that just sucks, man, because there are actually some amazing cars still being built, some awesome gems that are out there, but we as a society, I feel like we've kind of like, I don't know what's causing it. It could be just a host of different things, just life in general being too busy or too expensive, or whatever the excuse is. We all have excuses, but I feel like I had the most fun in my life when I was really making cars and just fun with cars, and therefore fun with my car friends a priority.
See, I think I got this. Like modern life has become disconnected. In general, it's disconnected. Look around. People are riding in big cars with the windows up. They're on the phone. A car is an expression of yourself. It's kind of your avatar when you're out there to the world. And it used to be you did not have to be like a big time car enthusiast to catch that. You know what I mean? To understand that. You could be like your wife, for example. Just, yes, my car is my transportation, but it's also a little bit more than that. You know what I mean? It's kind of the way I'm represented to the world. It's the way I see the world when I travel. It's all these other things. I want it to be special. Hold on a second. My daughter's saying goodnight. Hi, baby. Love you. Um, but these days I think everybody's so detached in everything that they do. It's not just driving. I mean, you're walking through an airport, like everybody's just in their own little world. They're on their phones, they're doing their own thing, and they never disconnect from the phone, but it makes them disconnected from everything else. I've made little social media rants on this because I don't understand. Maybe I'm just being totally sexist and out of touch here, but like these women, like at my daughter's school, for example, women in their 30s, 40s, whatever it is, like they are all about their extensions, their eyelashes, their makeup, their highlights, their nails, their Botox, their lips, their Louis Vuittons, their outfits. It's all getting hashtagged in Instagram, and they got it on point, and they all drive the same basic bitch SUV. And the guys aren't exempt because they drive the same basic bitch pickup. It's like one of three pickups, you know, and one of four SUVs. It's kind of pathetic, man. Like life should have a little bit more color and spice to it, and they just do not care. They don't care.
Yeah, and kind of combining that with what you were saying about car ownership just being something that the younger generation just isn't really a big fan of anymore. You know, we're seeing more and more like subscription-based programs that companies are offering. But Wooly, you and I were talking on the phone last night, and it really stuck with me that like people are viewing, especially EVs now these days, as more or less things that they can just toss like a piece of tech after a few years because, like you had mentioned, find me a first generation Prius. I can't remember the last time I've seen one on the road, you know, 25 years later. But that's kind of how people are viewing these cars. And the thing is, all these dealerships are offering like lower and lower monthly payments. Like I've noticed it. I told you, I've noticed that like these things that were once $400-500 a month payments, now the dealers are marking them down and down and down to where it's like $299 a month, $250 a month, as low as two
Oh,
hundred
there you go.
dollars a month to lease, not own, a brand new electric vehicle for
Well,
3 years. And then, you know, if it's acting up or it's got lesser range or whatever, just it's like a phone. Oh, my battery's not as good as it used to be. Oh, the new model's out. I'll just toss it. Now we've got more landfill waste. Now we've got more issues to deal with after the fact. But you know, it's like who on down the road of making the EVs was like, oh, this will never be an issue. This we'll never have to deal with this. You know,
yeah.
like here we are
I mean,
sowing the seeds.
I think the key for auto manufacturers is to get their battery back, you know, because once they really figure out how to recycle these things, that's what they're going to want to do. And I think the reason the leases are so good, you said like $400 or $500 a month. Nah, man, these cars, you know, are $60,000 cars. The monthly payment's like $800 or whatever. But now you can lease them for 300, these EVs. And the only reason they're doing that is because people aren't buying them. They got to move them. Mike probably knows more about this than me, but like right now they're in the holy shit, we've got to move these cars phase. So they're doing leases that are it's kicking the can of shit down the road because in 2 or 3 years when that comes back, it's gonna be a $20,000 EV that
Mm,
you're gonna be trying to sell $60,000 ones on the lot new, and then the 2-year-old one's 20. Like, how's this gonna go? It's
yeah.
gonna be a disaster. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, there's two main things that are happening there. One, you know, even the stock market is very high right now. The economy in general is not doing super great. You know, you're seeing a lot of layoffs. I don't want to get into that part of it, but anyway, the fact is people are not spending as much money as they were before, and also the kind of initial EV hit has kind of waned off. You know, all of the big early adopters have already adopted, and so now you're kind of fighting a lot of different things. Car prices in general are all coming down, and they have to move these freaking EVs. And just cars in general, you have to move them. You can't just sit on all this inventory and have it going nowhere. So you got to move it. You got to get it off the lot, even if it means leasing it out there for a small amount of money, just so that you at least get your cost back, and then you eventually get the car back, and you can kick the can down the road and deal with that problem in 3 years when those leases come back. You know, but at least right now you get it gone. It's physically out of the way, and it's at least somewhat being paid for. The other thing is just flat out they have to get people to try it. You know, the whole EV switch going from gas to EV is such a drastic change. But if you can get people to just like live with it for a little while and not do the whole gas powered thing, a lot of people will make the switch for good. So that's another reason why it's so cheap. They're trying to get, you know, the next wave of adopters to jump in there.
Yeah, but statistically, like over half of them are going back to internal combustion.
Yeah, but
Like a lot of people that try EVs are not loving the experience.
that's true. That's true. And that's you know, it's still not a perfected product, but keeping half of the audience is still better than getting none.
Yeah. So do you think if Volkswagen could do this Scout, see, Volkswagen made their bed and they're kind of effed, and they're sleeping in it right now. The fact, I mean, you know, they've been working on this Scout thing for, I mean, shoot, they announced the teaser over 2 years ago. So this has
Yeah.
been kind of happening and happening. And 2 years ago, they were very much, we're all in on EV, and we can force this thing into place. We're going to make this work, and I mean, I hate to say it, but Biden was still in office. You know what I mean? Like he was still earlier in his term, and so they were all swinging that way along with his basically going into office. They were all like, okay, yeah, full EV because that's the plan. And here we are later. It's not panning out. There's been a lot of backtracking. A lot of these automotive manufacturers are in deep trouble. Volkswagen being one of them. And
Yeah.
Ben Battles touched on this. Like one of the Volkswagen executives said, "We have 1 year, maybe two."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm paraphrasing, to get our house in order here to figure this out, or we are in deep trouble. Like for him to say that on record is that's pretty telling. Stellantis has destroyed the American brands that they bought. Absolutely destroyed them. I don't think Dodge or Chrysler comes out of this. And I think Jeep will probably get sold. You know what I mean? And I think when these companies like Stellantis and Volkswagen do get into deep trouble that they're heading towards, guess who's going to come in and own 51%? China. Like BYD, like all those guys are gonna pounce at that time. So anyway, I got off subject, but is EV the right move for the Scout?
I mean, we've been talking about this for so long. Is EV the right move? I mean, the fact is, it's happening whether we like it or not. Just in general, as the way our society is going, it is happening. So these guys do have to conform at least in some way. Now that being said, I think that most of them are going about it completely the wrong way because the whole idea of EV is supposed to be green and sustainable. And the engineering departments come up with everything except for that whenever they build these cars. So when I see something like the Scout coming out, my brain immediately goes to the freaking Hummer EV and the Tesla Cybertruck, which are both the most anti-EV thing I can possibly think of. They weigh like 8,000 pounds. It's 1,000 horse. Yeah, more. It's 1,000
Mm-hmm.
power. I mean, it's basically just a freaking bulldozer with a massive, absolutely gargantuan battery pack in there. There's nothing green about this thing at all. And I can't help but think that Scout is going to see this as a way to do a money grab because the thing is, whenever you say it's got 1,000 horsepower and this massive range and it can crab walk and it's the big boss vehicle to drive up at your kid's hoity-toity school, $120,000, and they're going to see all the profit margin they can make. And I have a feeling that's probably what they're going to do because making the economical, the smart EV, I don't think pays the way that they want to. And
Yeah.
with as much R&D and costs as they're gonna have to put into this thing, they're gonna need to crank it up and make some freaking profit on the back end. So
Well,
feeling that this thing is gonna be an overbuilt tank that is not green. That's just my educated guess. That's what I think is probably gonna happen.
yeah, somebody once told me it's easy to sell horsepower to people that don't know about cars. It's an easy sale. You just slap the hood and you go, this thing right here has got 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, and people that really don't know shit about cars go, oh man, yeah, I gotta have that. It's a
Mm,
lot harder to sell emotion. It's a lot harder to sell. It's a lot harder to sell a Miata than a Hellcat. You know
that's
what I mean? And that's because consumers are stupid. But that's the way it is. And in terms of price, see, and Ben Battles touched on this too, and so did my article. Everybody lost their minds over the Scout. All the automotive media was just, oh my God, the Scout, the Scout, the Scout. This was not a production reveal. This was a concept reveal. And
mm,
it seems like everybody forgot about that. So all the stats are not promises. And the price is damn sure not a promise. They're saying this thing's going to start in the low 50s. This is a pep rally. That is
Mm-hmm.
not true.
when they first introduced the Cybertruck, how much did they say that thing was going to
It's
cost?
like 39
Like
How much
30,
are they now?
40.
at 100,000 to
Yeah,
that.
exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. Yeah, well, same thing with the Lightning. They were like, "It's going to be a $35,000 electric truck. It's going to change the whole
No.
world. Coming in 2 years. Give me your $100 deposit." And that's what they do. They take the $100 deposit after their pep rally. They use that as capital and funding. They go to investors and get more capital and funding. They go to politicians and talk about all the good that they're doing, and they get land like Rivian did in Georgia,
Mhm.
and then they kick the can down the road and they don't build the car by 2027, and then they hit up all the people with their $100 deposits and said, hey, it's going to be another 15 grand. The market adjust, there's been whatever inflation, and they just keep fucking the customer and all of us. And we've seen it before. I'm sorry if I'm skeptical. This is the playbook now.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely. And Mike, you were saying, like it's a cash grab, and that's a fantastic way to describe it because at this point, you are no longer buying the car, you're buying the brand. Scout being a name that is long standing here in the United States. Wooly, you and I were talking last night about like how a lot of owners of the classics are going to be looking at this car and being like, oh, I can add that to my garage because it does give me the modern features and the comforts and all of this, but it's got the name. It's got this brand. It's got the little logo right there in the corner of the grill that's going to match with my 1960s example. And then that's going to be so cool. And I'm going to be the coolest kid on the block. And then everybody's going to do it. We've seen that with Ford with the Bronco. When they unveiled the Bronco, it was smash hit because it had the classic styling. And now look at the Bronco Raptors that they cannot keep for more than 5 minutes before people are buying them because it's so cool. I don't know that this new truck is going to have the same
Yeah.
kind of feel about it because
Well,
it's an EV.
that's the problem. That's why I was asking, like, would they do it again, EV, if they hadn't already made that bet? Because we know, seeing the designs of the Terra, which is the pickup, and the Traveler, which is an SUV, both of those cars with turbocharged 6 cylinders or V8s or whatever would absolutely kill. They would
Oh yeah.
be right there with Jeeps and Broncos and Toyota 4x4s. They would slay.
Mhm.
But being an EV, you already have a stigma. With me, I'm sure with you too, we have a stigma, and it's a Rivian stigma. We know exactly who's going to buy this car. So now
Yeah.
it's on them to have to try and overcome that stigma. And I don't know if they can. It has a lot of the right elements, dude. The Terra, the pickup, has an optional bench seat. Like, I don't even know if I would get that, but it's awesome that they're doing it because the interior looks so vintage modern. It's awesome. They're doing big, rollback roofs. It's virtually convertible. You know what I mean? It keeps all the pillars, but the whole thing opens up. It's got knobs, so Volkswagen's been listening. Thank God. People want a
Yep.
tactile experience. It's got a lot of things that speak to emotions. Whereas Rivian, the closest competitor, really didn't. It has a lot of impressive gadgets and some really unique design qualities, but it didn't really capture the emotions. It was an iPad on wheels. You know what I mean? Like, the Scouts, I think, can one up the Rivian, but it got an uphill battle, man, because we already have our preconceived notions.
Yeah.
I do want to say though, the one thing that Volkswagen does have going in their favor is that they are listening to their customers whenever it comes to we want options. Like if you're going to make an EVs, for the most part, are all going to feel the same. It's about the personalization and what you can do to make it yours that will make you stand out in the crowd of all of the EVs that are already out there. Like, take, for example, they've got the new ID Buzz, the new bus that just came out. I've seen several examples of it at little test events and stuff like that here in the South. And every one I've seen is unique and they have options, not just on the tech side of things, like we're talking interior interior options, color options. You want it two-tone, you can have it two-tone this way, funky collars, that kind of stuff that people want, like instead of it just being like Tesla, you want one of three, maybe four colors, you can get one, maybe two interior options,
Yeah.
and that's it. You are like everyone else, and it's stale and it's stagnant. And I think Volkswagen, if they play their cards right with the new Scout brand, could have a potential winner on their hands if they can have your customers decking it out. Like you said, like starting price could be $50,000, and then spec it out to infinity, $100,000 in options later. I hope that's not the case. I hope Volkswagen sticks to their roots and it's like,
I think
here's some feasible options that are going to set you apart from everyone else. But that might
I
just be
think
wishful thinking on my part.
I think they're going to be mid 70s. I think it's going to hit right where a Lexus GX would be. So the GX is an internal combustion twin turbo six, so that wins. Like I think the Scout looks cool, and it's worth mentioning because we didn't mention like some things that enthusiasts and off roaders would like. It's body on frame. That's cool. It's mechanical front and rear lockers. So that's cool because it's like, all right, the whole car is electronic, but then you're adding mechanical, you know what I mean? Like that's cool. Like what are you gonna put roll up windows? Like they should. Like it's kind of you know what I mean? But like when the whole car is being run off a battery, it just makes sense that everything's gonna be software and electronic. But they're doing mechanical lockers. A solid rear axle.
Mm-hmm.
Like no other EVs, to my knowledge, have that. It's all independent shit. 35s. I think they're going to sell 35s from the factory, which will be interesting on the range. Because again, I don't think these tech happy automotive journalists out there that are more into tech than they are cars, they don't understand that a 35-inch tire and wheel weighs 95 pounds.
Yeah.
They don't understand what rotational mass is going to do to the range. They just see the tire and they get a little tickle in their pants. Like when you have a 90-pound wheel and tire and 1,000 pounds of instantaneous torque, what's going to happen when that thing's wedged up on a rock and you go, it's just going to shear every damn thing. Unless they have software that dulls down the power. And see, now you're just using software to overcome your own massive power and your inability to drive it. Like, it just gets stupid fast. But it also has, again, no promises. This is just razzle dazzle from the little, pep rally concept thing that they did. But they're talking about 3 feet of water crossing, potential. So it's got some things that the off-road community should admire. It's, to me, headed much more in the right direction than like the Cybertruck, which is just a weird thing. One of my Facebook friends said it's a vehicle of extremes. Like what it does well, it does really well. Like you can put tannerite on it, blow it up, and it doesn't fully damage it. But then you attach a trailer to it and it rips the whole back of the frame off. Like what it does well, it does well, but what they got wrong, they got really wrong. So it's a very strange vehicle because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to build an off-roader. Volkswagen does. They've got experience building cars. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, but that being said, is anyone here concerned about Volkswagen's ability to financially make this happen? I mean, they've been talking about shutting down plants and layoffs for a full solid year.
Ooh, yeah.
And I literally just read an article today. I have it pulled up right now that says that Volkswagen is planning a deeper than expected overhaul with its manufacturing facilities, specifically in Europe. They are planning on shutting down at least 3 manufacturing facilities, laying off thousands of staff, and permanently shrinking its remaining plants in Europe. That's
which
its
they
base.
which
Like I know that this is the new big flavor and this is the big rollout they're trying to do, but and of course this is dumb conspiracy theory, Mike, taking over here. But anybody think that maybe this is the, hey, look over here at the shiny new object while the whole world is burning over here? Like if somebody's in that much trouble where they're literally just cutting the legs out from under their manufacturing power and capabilities, how the hell are they going to take on a whole nother brand?
Yeah, that's actually a very good point because, like I live here in Chattanooga. this is where we build the ID4, an all-electric Volkswagen. And Volkswagen, like 1 month ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago, furloughed like 500 employees right there, and the lines are at like a creep. When I was there making Passats, now keep in mind this was 10 years ago, working on the assembly line there at Volkswagen, we were making like 375 cars a day, and I think it's like 175 cars a day right now, from what I've been told. So it's like, yeah, how are they going to sustain it when they can't hardly sustain what they've already
Well,
got? That's a very good question.
does that make Scout a cash grab? You know, Scouts had nothing but a little sketch
Mm-hmm.
for the last two and a
Mm-hmm.
half years, and all of a sudden they could be like, Scout, man, we can get some money out of that without actually making anything. Let's make 2 cars. Let's do a presentation. Let's take the $100 deposits. I mean, it's true. I've been reading those articles that Mike was just referencing, and they've never had to shut down a plant ever. Ever. Volkswagen has not done this. This is unprecedented for them to be shutting down plants like that. So
Now
it's
this
interesting that
improvement.
yeah, well, that they're in such trouble, yet and that's the thing. I'm almost looking at Scout like a startup in a weird way, which I know that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe Scout could put some new life into Volkswagen, which they desperately need. Because
Yeah.
I mean, they me and Ben were talking about this yesterday, and I know me and Mike have talked about it. Like Volkswagen has completely fallen off. They are flatlined. They have lost their fan base. It was not that long ago that their ad campaigns marketed, thrill, driving experience, emotion, style, pizzazz, whatever you want to call it. That Volkswagen thing that was just like cool. Volkswagens were cool. Like, when I was in college, man, having a GTI was cool. You know what I mean? Like they were just cool cars. Now they are freaking, I mean, they perform well, but they are boring. They've taken the manual transmissions out of them. They've built a car that performs well, but you don't feel anything. And the rest of the Volkswagen lineup, I don't even know what an ID4 freaking looks like. Dude, if you told me to draw any of those damn things, I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they've just totally, they virtue signaled themselves to death, to irrelevance. So maybe the Scout could remind them, oh, yeah, wait, hold on. We actually do have the skills to build cool stuff. I don't know what we've been doing for the past 15 years, but who knows, man? At this point, they need to be trying everything. Like, they need to try.
If they could introduce the Scout the same way that Ford kind of did the Bronco, not that crappy Bronco Sport, but the legit Bronco, with a lot of cool cars and a lot of cool options, and just it's badass coming from the factory, and even similar to how Jeep's been doing it, and kind of like make it to where it's like, yeah, we offer a $40,000 to $50,000 model, but like you can't find those; they don't really exist. They're kind of a myth, They made one or two, so technically it's available, but it's really not. And then just option these things out like crazy, and then boom, you've got a really nice, really cool car that's out there selling for 80 plus $1,000 each. And as long as the market is good enough and the car is good enough, people will pay for it. And that could be something that could really get Volkswagen out of a lot of trouble. But that being said, they own so many brands and they own so much market share. It's going to take more than just Scout. They got to turn around their current projects and get them really moving again, or else none of this is going to be true. They're going to be in freaking insolvency.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, me and Mike were talking about this a little bit today, but is that what happens when you start? I'm not saying, I don't even know who Volkswagen's CEO is off the top of my head, but the general trend has been to hire these CEOs that have a lot of turnaround. That is this what happens when you hire CEOs that are more about being CEOs than they are about the history and the integrity of the brand and really understanding the brand? Me and Mike bang our heads against the wall because we're like, how could they not see what we see so clearly? And I think it's because they're not fans like we're fans. They're CEOs and they come from one company and they get hired here and they cost a lot of money and they do some stuff, and if it doesn't work then they're gone and the next one comes in. Like they seem to be completely out of touch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I came from a business where a CEO was brought in after the guy that founded the company was like, I'm going to retire. I need somebody to take my place. And what he did was he came in and sold the company basically to an investment firm. And all they did was grow the company, quote unquote, by purchasing other companies
Mhm.
and kind of putting them all under this umbrella and saying, oh, look, our company's value is now this. Meanwhile, it's been millions of dollars invested, and the company that it was to begin with is no longer like a thing, really. And it's just like a whole bunch of blah blah blah. But I will say this, I do see like hope kind of on the horizon with at least a couple of people, CEO wise. And Wooly, I told you last night, one of the people that personally I believe, and this may be a hot take, but the CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, he's made a lot of statements here in the recent past about like EVs, realistic targets, goals, and things like they've had to scale back like from 40% to 30% of their overall efforts going into EV production
Mhm.
and developing new cars there. But on a personal level, like I've met the man, and outside of if you didn't know who he was and just met him, you would say, oh, he is just a car guy. He's a car guy before he's a CEO. We need more of that in the automotive industry. People like that, I feel like if everybody just banded together and said, hey, EPA, here, three-letter agencies, here's like our realistic goals and expectations that we can provide based on customer demand. Demand is the word that if you look at EVs and the production of EVs, demand, it's like the demand was lower, so we had to lower our expectations. Customer demand was not there, so we had to stop making this and batteries and just furlough employees. Like everything, demand. So if you just stop looking at that, focus on what are the customers wanting demand wise, and be like, well, maybe
Yeah.
EVs aren't the future like Mr. Toyota said they would not be. And now they're looking into stuff like hydrogen and other alternative fuel sources, which is great. We need
Well,
more of that in the automotive
see,
industry.
Akio Toyota, who's now on the board but no longer CEO, but basically he's still got a hand in it. He said it when it wasn't popular.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke the truth when everybody else was on the bandwagon. Jim Farley, like, I like him because you can tell he loves cars. But when EV was the agenda and that's what the governments were saying to do, he was a yes man. Absolutely. He tried to trick the people into EV as the future. He tried to alienate the dealerships and say, this is a quote. This will be brutal for you dealerships. Like he told his dealerships that. He was full on, man. He was committed. And then when the gun jammed, he's like, oh no, yeah, I'm one of you guys, man. Like I don't want to make boring cars anymore. You know what I mean? Like so I want to like him. You know what I mean? I believe, like you were saying, I believe if I met him and had a beer with him, he would be a very cool person. But the investors have his hooks in them, or have their hooks in them.
I mean, but he was in an impossible situation. He's got the customers
You're
and
the CEO, man. Like,
but hold on. This wasn't just a normal CEO position. You've obviously got your customers you have to keep happy. You obviously have your investors you have to keep happy. But then he also had politicians telling him how they were going to legislate his entire industry and therefore his
Mm-hmm.
inventory and manufacturing practices. That's the problem. That is where it all got screwed up. Is that the government poked their head into an industry that they don't understand and they don't get at all, and they just basically said, here's what's going to happen. And I'm sure a lot of those people stood up, hey kitty, a lot of those people stood up and said, hey, that's not realistic. And they said, we don't care, we're going to do it anyway. Here are your deadline dates, by the way. And that's where it all got completely screwed up, because then all of a sudden those guys were in a frantic mess to go try to make this happen. And at that point you kind of have to become a yes man and just throw shit at the wall and hope that something sticks. Now, obviously, we see how it's turned out, 3.5 years later, but that's pretty much what happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. Again, I get it. The government should have never inserted themselves to that degree. And that should be a lesson that we all kind of learn from, and who we vote for and how big of a government we want. Like the whole point is keep the government small, keep them fucking out of the way, keep the gas cheap, and keep credit easy, and then we will have a good economy. You know what I mean? Like we just, but at some point, the CEO should have said, this is not going to work. Like Mazda CEO in Australia basically just told the Australian government to suck it. Like they were like, we're not going out of business because of your mandates and agenda. We know what our customers want. We're going to build what our customers want. Fine us and piss off. And it's like more of that. If there were a
Yeah.
couple courageous CEOs that said that, they would get a ton of media support and praise, and then maybe the less courageous CEOs would follow. But they literally all fell in line, man.
Because the machine comes for you, man. That big media person killing machine. Look what they did to Akio, dude. They literally tried to kick him out of his own family's damn company.
Yeah, they did that. I don't know if you knew that, Battles, or anybody watching, but they literally held
Mm-hmm.
like a meeting to get him gone
Yeah.
because he was throwing a wrench in the thing, and
Yeah.
doing it not just for Toyota, but he was speaking truth. And people were like, this man's not lying, and it's
Mm,
not what they wanted, man.
yep.
But remember, a year ago, all the techies of the world were saying Toyota's done. They're done. They failed to evolve to the future, and they could just die with the rest of the Luddites. And it's like, yeah, okay. I just
Yeah.
whatever, man. Um, I guess that's all we got. Anything else about Scout specifically? I know you want to talk about Import Alliance because you went there this weekend, but I'm
Yep.
trying to think, is there anything else? See, and that's the thing. I mean, I guess to wrap up Scout, it's confusing because I think it had been an obvious home run with an internal combustion engine, but you're trying to market like an internal combustion car that doesn't have the engine to people that don't want an EV. You know what I mean? You're like crossing too much. You're trying to market an adventurous 4x4 to people that want that, but not with an electric motor. If they can pull it off, then they've really got something. Then they have the first, respected EV that, guys that like cars and going out in the wilderness or something might they could have, a historically significant thing on their hands. But it's 75 grand. It's much more likely that it's another meh, and dweebs buy it and it gets a stigma and they park it at REI and they go buy their fancy $600 jackets.
That's the point. See, I think that's the part that you're kind of missing. I think that when you look at this and you say somebody's marketing an off-road vehicle, to me, you're thinking about Jonathan Woolley, the guy who loves to go win his Jeep, that would go do big, ridiculous weekend trips and trails and all this stuff. 95% of the people who buy Jeeps and Broncos because they are rugged and badass outdoor vehicles never leave the pavement. Ever. That's what they're based
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what else to say, man. Like it's a pretty car, pretty truck. I like the truck, man. Like it's kind of like it's a good size. It looks like a Tacoma with about another 8 inches of rear seat room, which is exactly what a Tacoma needs. Whatever. Good luck to them. We'll see in 2030 when
Yeah.
one finally trickles into a dealership. Anyway, tell us about Import Alliance.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I got the hoodie on. Import Alliance. It's
Let's
very
go.
small. I have a cat in my lap. I can't really go much closer to the camera than that. But yeah, want to start off by saying a special shout out to our friends over at Import Alliance. Don, Martel, Brady, Amari, just everybody over there and all the team over there that make it possible because this weekend was the fall meet up at Beach Bend Raceway in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I had an absolute blast up there. I actually even went to the Corvette Museum and NCM before Import Alliance and checked all that out. I had never been. It was an absolutely wild time. But what I was up there doing for Import Alliance was I was actually working the event up there, doing video. See, for those of you that don't know me, I make videos every single day, like little shorts that you see on Instagram, and basically that's what I was doing up there for Import Alliance, was making all of these short form content videos up there. And it's nonstop action up at Beach Bend, because you can literally stand in the middle of drag racing and then over here drifting, from everything from the grassroots to the pros and everybody in between. And you could just sign up and go drive your car on the drag strip. Like, it was a very engaging time for anyone that went, and that is what sets Import Alliance apart from just your average car meet, right? But then that got me thinking, as we got started here, is like, I'm making these videos. I love making these videos, and I appreciate the opportunity to make these videos. But, it's kind of a nostalgic feeling, I guess, going back there, because I hadn't been to Beach Bend in like 10 years with
Uh,
Import Alliance. This was my first fall meet in a long time, man. And it kind of just brought me back to that time where, like, the internet was definitely a thing, but it was less of like you seeing it online and more or less wanting to be there in person. Now we've got technology at our fingertips where, like, I guess, part of the problem, so to speak, making the videos where people just get on their phone and look at Instagram and go, oh, yeah, that's cool, like, and then move on, and not, oh, man, that looks so cool. I want to go there. And I'm going to tell my friends, hey, let's all book a hotel or an Airbnb and go up there like we used to do 10 years ago. I think that's what's gotten into the scene these days, is that people have stopped with the I'm going to go, and more or less gone, oh, that's cool. Wish I was there. Next. And just forget about it until next year comes around, and then the cycle repeats. And I kind of want to get y'all's take on, like, where's that happy medium between making the media for, people, getting people excited versus getting people, oh, that's cool, next.
yeah. Do you want to go or you want me to go?
I'll take it. I don't think that we in the industry are doing a very good job of grooming a young generation of automotive enthusiasts. Whenever I used to go to all those events, whether it was Nopi or Import Alliance or whatever, growing up, you always had your crew that was with you. But one of the things that made it fun was all of the young people, the people who were from like 16 to 24, just getting into cars, coming out there with their first build or their first, going out there to buy a car or whatever. The people who were literally just getting their feet, seeing the excitement and just everything about them starting to foster that relationship between man and vehicle. That was always one of the funnest things to me. And I just don't think that our media or our companies or anything about our industry in general right now, I feel like we are so heavily reliant on the internet that we're missing the stuff that really brings people truly into this. And that is like the older guys taking them under their wing and saying, hey, come, let's drive this car around. Let me show you something. I'll take you to the racetrack. The actual tangible things are not happening because the internet side of it is too easy. And like you said, you just scroll, you see something cool and go, neat, like, moving on. And then you go see the next freaking dance video or whatever the hell you happen to be scrolling through. But yeah, I think that's a lot of it. We're not grooming the young generation the way that we should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And yeah.
well, I was going to
Um,
say there's overexposure is actually like not a good thing.
Mhm.
We don't understand that. You get into cars, if cars are the example, and you start liking stuff, and so the algorithm feeds you more of it, right? You know what I mean? And so you start seeing more and more and more, and it feels like a good thing, but it's not, dude. Getting just the right amount of inspiration and media is it's perfect. You know what I mean? Because that's what makes you want to go. You give somebody enough but not give them everything. And it lights that fire. That's what magazines did so well. They didn't have comments. They didn't let outside influences get into your head after you read something. It was just enough to be like, damn, that's cool. Damn, that's cool. Damn, man, I want. And then your brain would just go and it would fill in all the gaps and you get really motivated and you get that fire inside you and you'd be like, man, I want to go. I want to do that. And you call your friend. Or else your friend would go to IA in 2008 and come back and go, holy shit, you have got to come next year. You should have been at the La Quinta. It was insane. There was hotel parties. There was blah, blah, blah. The managers were chasing around. People were toilet paper and TP in the whole place. And this guy got a limo because they kicked everybody out of the parking lot, but then he came out the limo with two fingers up because they couldn't kick him out of a limo. And it's like all this stuff, and you're like, I feel like I gotta go there. You know what I mean? But like these days we're so overexposed that we don't feel like we have to be there. It's a weird phenomenon. It's not really working out. And on top of that, you have economic issues. I mean, hotels used to be $70 for like a pretty decent one. You know, back when we were going to these events, when we were going to Nopi or when we were going to early IA or whatever. Now hotels are like hundreds of dollars a night. You know, gas was like $1.20. Now gas is like $4. You know what I mean? And that's over here on the East Coast, you know, but like it's harder to travel. You don't see vendors go to events. I mean, dude, granted, Nopi was a very unique situation and they ruled the world, but every vendor would go to Nopi. Now, vendors don't leave. Man, they send somebody like you, Ben Battles, and they'll be like, hey, can you go cover this for us and just film all the cars with our wheels on it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a laziness across the board. And nobody admits that it's not working because they're like, well, our numbers are no. Well, yeah, the population's doubled too. Like your numbers are going to go up. Your sales are probably going to go up, but you're not connecting with the young guys in the same way. It's not happening. It's because we live in a world of social media, self promotion, of just overexposure to the point where you just go numb to it. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. Like I've given this example before, but when I first got into stand-up jet skis, it's very much like a kid that just got into cars because you start to like, you know, you're on the outside, you know, the fringes of it, and you're like, oh my god, this is awesome. And my buddy, because stand-up jet skis are kind of totally, you know, retro and out of date anyway, he gave me some magazines and I was reading those magazines and it gave me that feeling of like, this is freaking awesome. I want to know more. I want to know more, man. I want to get into this. I want to do this. I wanted to go work on it right now. And then I started, you know, they were like, oh, you should like this page on Facebook. I'm like, okay. And I like it. Oh, you should like this one. Okay. And then pretty soon every other thing I scrolled past was a stand-up jet ski. And after a couple weeks of that, I was like, hold on. I am getting like I'm getting annoyed by the thing that I loved just 2 weeks ago. Like it's overexposing me to the point where I'm getting numb to it. And I've only been into it for 2 weeks. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we wonder why we're in a situation now where the young guys that are into it, they're flipping cars. They're trading out cars every couple of months. They're trading out wheels every couple of months because everything's kind of this phony facade. It's put together for Instagram and it's not real. When me and Mike were doing this in the Nopi days, man, performance was the driver of the whole thing. It wasn't stance. It was, I mean, we wanted to look cool and aesthetics were certainly important, but like performance was what was driving the attitude of the import culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can look at any early Fast and Furious to get a feel for how that was going. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of how the vibes were. It was we thought we were the fastest dudes on the face of the planet. We were arrogant about it. We had huge egos. You know what I mean? And big stereos, no apologies. It was big wings. It was just big everything. And it was super infectious. And you had to be a part of it to be a part of it. Now you can just watch it and be a part of it. Oh yeah, I like Dude in Blue. Okay, that's cool. But do you actually like live this stuff, or do you just like Dude in Blue and Hoonigan and whatever? You know, like it's just different, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, we are in the age of instant consumability, and that is definitely a thing that we can't just escape. But I will say this, like, during my time this weekend up at Import Alliance, there were times, you know, like, you go from being a consumer to a creator, and I'm up there creating the content for people to consume. So I get to see both sides of everything, at the same time, but a lot of people just need to understand you just need to live in the moment sometimes. Like I will say this weekend I put my camera down, I put my phone in my pocket and just walked down the strip and just saw the show cars, talked to people, it's like, hey, how's your day going? How's the car doing? You feeling good? And just like connecting with people. You can do that online, but only to a certain extent. It is not the same as those face-to-face interactions. And if all of your experience of going to a car show is going to your local Hobby Lobby car meet, and that's about it, and saying you're a car guy or a car gal from that, you are missing the point entirely, because there's a lot more out there. Like the drifting, dude, people were doing ride-alongs. You could just be like, hey man, you got an extra helmet? Oh yeah, sure, hop in. Did you sign a waiver? Oh great, come on over here. In my insert a Nissan 350Z Infinity G35 here. But
Yeah.
you could just hop in a car and go sideways with somebody and have a great time. And it's just like, live in that moment. And you cannot do that vicariously through your phone, truly. As much dopamine and serotonin as it gives you, it cannot replace the feeling of the real thing, the adrenaline of going down the quarter mile or anything like that. So my best advice would be for people to go and experience it themselves.
Well, and just me and Mike from like S3's point of view, dude. Like when we used to go to more events more of the time, like you never came back. It was like that was a waste of time. That sucked. Like it was always like, dang man, I'm motivated about something. You know what I mean? Like you were
Yes.
motivated. S3, we were motivated about the business or the magazine. We were motivated about our cars, or we wanted whatever car we were looking at the other booth the whole weekend, because we're always looking across at some other booth and we're like, damn, I need a Z32 300ZX now. Like I've been looking at this thing. Like you always left like greater than you went. You know what I mean? Like it always built you up. So we're a victim of that too. Like I'm sitting here calling kids out, and me and Mike have fallen into that. We go, eh, dang man, we're gonna have to get over there. It's gonna cost a bunch of money. Like it used to be, we go out there and get a bunch of subscriptions, but now not doing that. You know what I mean? Like we're not getting that $20 a pop or whatever. It's a free app. So you're just going there to give away a product, and that's cool and all, but at the end of the day, you come back broke, or you missed your kid's game or her cheer or whatever it is, and there's other things that are fighting for your time. But eventually that stuff adds up, and there's like a void, it's like, man, I need to, like I love messing with my old cars and living the lifestyle and driving, cool stuff all the time. But like, I miss doing it with other people. I damn sure miss the hotel parties we used to throw down at.
Yeah.
Like it was a great time, dude. I got friends across the country just because we went and hung out and acted a fool and had a blast.
I have stories that I will tell until I die, based on some of those events that we've been to.
Yeah, yeah, man. It was a great time. And that's another thing, I could just be an old ass, but I feel like the Airbnb thing kind of took some of that spice out, because now I see a lot of crews, you know what I mean, getting an Airbnb, some mansion, and splitting it with a bunch of guys, and they're wiling out for social media, but like it doesn't compare to like 700 people overrunning a Motel 6 or whatever. And just the entire parking lot is chaos. Everybody's in the balconies and on the streets. You know what I mean? You meet people you didn't know. Like you end up just making friends.
I mean, I'm gonna say I've definitely been to at least two of those Airbnb style click parties where, everybody from this certain car group gets together, one of which was at a previous Slammed Enough show. and I realized I was the oldest person in the room at like 25, and I was like, oh great. And after about 300 people showed up, I was like, I should probably leave. And as soon as I decided to do that, it absolutely got raided. And it was like, it
Yeah.
was the wildest thing ever. But it did bring me back to those parties like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Import Alliance. Like, I can remember one night waking up at like 4 a.m. and I was dirt poor, couldn't afford going to the host hotel, but I could afford staying at the Motel 6 across the street from the host hotel up
Yeah.
there. And the party was in the parking lot, and you just walk across the street and be like, hey, what's up, everybody? And, go and talk to whoever. And then the cops showing up at 2:30 and realizing your friend has severe alcohol poisoning and have to take care of him,
Yeah.
underage. But it's all good, it's those memories that I'm never ever gonna forget. Like you said, Mike, is like, I'm gonna tell these stories till the day I die. That's exactly right. That is exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the cars are rad, but the cars are just the ticket into the whole culture, the whole lifestyle and community and everything like that. So, whatever, man. I'm glad IA still doing their thing, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I hadn't been to a fall meet in quite some time, and Don gives me a lot of hell for that. And
Look,
rightfully so.
man.
Yeah.
I have never been to a Beach Bend fall meet. Like the last fall meet I've been to was Nashville.
Yeah,
So
dude, it's an experience. Like I said, man, there's stuff going on all the time. From the time the spectators get there till 30 minutes before everybody gets kicked out. There is something to do.
yeah,
Like I'll give a great example. Our boy Scott over at Grip Royal. Dude, he was giving rides to anybody that just walked up to his door. It was like, hey, you want in? You want right
get
here? All
in.
right. And then kick whoever's out and get you in, and there you
Yeah,
go. Like, man,
yeah,
he was great, and that's everybody. And I think there were so many people that signed up for drifting at this event too.
yeah,
Like their whole drift paddock was full, and then more people were still showing up, so they were just parking them like, spectators over here, just go ahead and park along the line over here. Dude, it was insane. Yeah, I definitely recommend anybody listening to this, and you, Mike, and you, Wooly, you need to go.
yeah.
Let's
Well, and
plan.
and to anybody listening, like the guys that do IA are legit, like the greatest, nicest people.
Mm-hmm.
Man, anywhere. Like Don Napier, I've known him for shit. I mean, I don't even know how. I think he called me in 2007 or something because I think they started IA. Don't quote me on this, in 2006 officially as IA. And then we had the magazine in '07, and he called, just cold called, just, hey, uh my name's Don. I do an event in Nashville called Import Alliance. I was like, oh yeah, man, my buddy Ben Howard told me about that. He shot some pictures. He's like, yeah, yeah. And now we're like best buds. You know what I mean? Like when I say best buds, we talk like at least once a week, just about everything, about life and everything else. And IA has never been like a clout thing. It's always been for the people. A lot of the young guys don't understand, like, when IA exploded, it like Nopi died in what, '08, and yeah, because it's when the economy crashed, and a lot of bad stuff happened at once. All the vendors started pulling out, and Nopi like just imploded, and IA was just kind of there to pick up the pieces, not even intentionally, but like, whereas Nopi was like big, larger than life, bikini contest, ludicrous, you know what I mean? Just foam pits. It was just mayhem, which was awesome. But then IA was like, hey, we're like by the people for the people. Like, we're not even giving out trophies. Like, we're just here to hang out. And so it was like a whole new, fresh thing, and it caught a generation at just the right time. It was just when the JDM thing was kind of popping off. Not even right hand drive JDM, more
Mm-hmm.
like Hondas that are built to JDM styles, and it just caught, man, and it was awesome. And yeah, so dude, those guys are great, man. They are literally like, if you're gonna support anybody, go support those guys.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. 100%.
I mean, they're awesome. But all right, what else? We got anything else?
Yeah,
About
that's
it.
it.
No, no,
No,
Mike.
no, I wanted to jump into something else, but it might be a little late for that.
We'll save it for another night and a little bit of whiskey.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So, Battles, do your plug before we sign off here.
Okay, cool. I'm Ben Battles. I have a channel, Battles Digital, all platforms. Go check it out. Appreciate it.
He's being humble, man. He's giant. He's huge online. He's a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check him out. But basically, the whole formula is like you said, 30-second type videos explaining the nuances of certain cars. Usually JDM varieties, but not always. It's a lot of everything. And like he said earlier, it's like one a day. Do you literally do one a day?
I have not missed a video in over 600 days.
Wow.
That makes me sick. Sick to my stomach. Don't make one tomorrow.
It's okay. I've already made my week's worth today, so I'm
Oh,
good.
oh, I guess it's like that. See, yeah, organization pays off.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks for listening this far, and we'll catch you next time, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Later.